I have exited Discovery. I'm a free agent." After years of rumors, Richard Rawlings is finally coming clean. The Fast and Loud star admits he's been hiding a dark secret that explains everything. Why his marriages failed, why he suddenly sold his car collection, and why Discovery really canceled his show. At 55, he's finally ready to tell the truth about what happened in that $6 million legal battle, and trust us, it's way worse than anyone imagined. Richard Rawlings was born on March 30th, 1969, in a working-class neighborhood in Fort Worth, Texas. Long before he became a TV personality and automotive mogul, his world already revolved around cars. One of the earliest photos of him shows a small boy sitting proudly in a pedal-powered Volkswagen Beetle. It wasn't just a toy, it was a glimpse of what was coming. While most kids were watching cartoons on Saturday mornings, Richard had a different routine. At 3 in the morning, when most of the city was still asleep, he'd get up and head out with his dad to deliver newspapers. They'd roll up stacks, drive through dark neighborhoods, and toss papers onto driveways. After school, Richard did the same thing again for the afternoon edition. On weekends, he'd ride his bike from house to house collecting payments. What really stood out during those rounds wasn't just the money, it was the cars. He started noticing every single one. He knew which house had what make, what model, and what year. Some customers were surprised by how much he knew. His answer was always simple. "I ride by your house twice a day most days of the week. How wouldn't I know what's in your driveway?" His father, who worked 2 or sometimes 3 jobs, always made sure he had one thing for himself, a car or a motorcycle. That single toy was his reward, and that lesson stuck. Richard watched and learned. If you wanted something special, you had to earn it. By the time he was 14, Richard bought his first car. It was 1983. The car was a green 1974 Mercury Comet. He paid for it with money he'd saved from years of newspaper routes. Most kids were dreaming about turning 16. Richard was already driving. Well, not legally, but that didn't stop him. That Comet wasn't just a ride, it was a statement. At school, he'd burn rubber in the parking lot doing donuts just to show what it could do. His classmates still talk about it despite the ugly green color. He thought it was the coolest car ever made. Things moved fast after that. By senior year in 1987, he was already on his 3rd car. This time, it was a black 1977 Bandit Trans Am. It looked like something straight out of Smokey and the Bandit, and it made him the go-to car guy at Eastern Hills High School. But it wasn't just about showing off. He was flipping cars, too. Buying, fixing, selling. Before graduation, he had already flipped around 20 different vehicles. He made more doing that than most teens earned with part-time jobs. And he wasn't guessing. He had an eye for spotting deals, improving them just enough, and convincing people to pay more than he did. It was the foundation of everything that came later. In the early 90s, when he was just 22, Rawlings faced something much more serious. He was driving a 1965 Ford Mustang 2+2 Fastback, a classic muscle car with the kind of roofline collectors dream about. One night, while cruising through a rough area near Oakland Boulevard in Fort Worth, he was ambushed by carjackers. They tried to pull him out of the driver's seat. Richard fought back. In the struggle, a bullet ripped through his shoulder and traveled down his left arm. He survived. He could have walked away from car culture forever. Instead, it only made him more determined. Between 1988 and 1990, before the tattoos, fame, or garage, Richard wore 3 uniforms. He worked as a police officer, firefighter, and paramedic, all before turning 21. His dad always said, "You get a good job with benefits, stay loyal, and retire with a gold watch." Richard listened, at least at first. It all changed in 1988 when he was delivering Miller Lite to a local bar. One of the regulars, who he thought was just another drunk, asked him what he planned to do with his life. Richard mentioned law enforcement but said he couldn't afford to go to the academy. The man looked at him and said, "Damn it, I'm the mayor of so-and-so city." Within 17 days, Richard was enrolled at the North Texas Police Academy. He served in Alvarado as a cop. Then he became a firefighter in Capel. He wore multiple hats and learned how to stay calm when things fell apart. Those crisis management skills would later help him in business, but by 25, he needed a change. He sold everything he owned and bought a Jeep, then took off for California hoping to start something new. Back then, he was clean-cut. No tattoos, no piercings. 6 months later, he came back to Texas broke, with tattoos, pierced ears, and no Jeep. It had been repossessed. He was sleeping on his sister's couch. That low point didn't break him. It focused him. He needed to start something of his own, and that's when he launched Lincoln Press in 1999. It was a printing and advertising company in Dallas. He had no background in printing but understood branding. He took out a $100,000 small business loan to get started. Within 5 years, Lincoln Press was booming. In 2004, he offered a Lamborghini Gallardo to the first client who spent $1 million with the company. That stunt worked. The company kept growing. Eventually, he sold it. That sale gave him the money he needed to chase his real dream: cars. When Richard Rawlings launched Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas back in 2002, things didn't exactly take off. The shop was small. It didn't even have running water or air conditioning, and it was built using money from the sale of Lincoln Press. It was rough, but Rawlings had passion, not resources. Still, he believed in what he built. So, he and team hit road traveling. Across U.S., car shows, trade events, rallies, promoting Gas Monkey name. It was a powerful stamp of approval. This was years before Fast and Loud made Rawlings a household name, but that nod from Leno helped give him serious credibility in the car world, and Rawlings needed that credibility. Between 2002 and 2012, getting Gas Monkey off the ground was anything but easy. He poured every dollar he had into the business. He worked out of a garage with no air conditioning, no running water, and barely enough tools to get by. He had trouble finding good mechanics, struggled to track down the right parts, and had to fight just to keep the lights on. Every project was a risk. Every customer had to be earned. During that time, Rawlings started pitching his idea for a show. He wanted to bring car restoration to a wider audience, not just gearheads but families, kids, anyone who liked a good story with some horsepower behind it. But networks didn't bite. The idea felt too niche or too risky. So, while waiting for a chance, he kept pushing the brand by hitting the road. More car shows, more meetups, more face-to-face connections. It was slow work, but it built something strong. By the time Discovery finally said yes in 2012, the name Gas Monkey already carried weight in the car community. When Fast and Loud first aired on June 6, 2012, nobody knew it would turn a Dallas garage into a global brand. At the center of it all was Richard Rawlings. Before the cameras showed up, he was just a guy running Gas Monkey Garage. After the show took off, he became a face recognized in over 200 countries. It wasn't just a hit in the U.S. The show was translated into 13 languages. That level of reach turned Rawlings into a major player in the entertainment world almost overnight. The concept was simple but powerful. Rawlings and his team searched for forgotten classic cars. Most were beat up or barely running. They brought the cars back to life, made them shine, then sold them for profit. But what made the show stand out was its tone. While other shows leaned into heavy drama or targeted niche audiences, Fast and Loud aimed wide. Rawlings described it as something both kids and grandparents could enjoy. He didn't want to make just another car show. He wanted it to be fun and fast-moving, and he wanted everyone to feel welcome watching it. The strategy worked. Viewers got hooked on the cars, the builds, and the energy. But the real turning point came when Rawlings used that success to expand far beyond TV. He launched Gas Monkey restaurants, clothing lines, energy drinks, tequila, vodka, and more. The garage was still there, but now it was the foundation for something much bigger. By 2020, Rawlings had built an entire empire, even though the show ended on June 8, 2020, after 16 seasons and 155 episodes. The brand was stronger than ever. The reason for the show's success came down to what Rawlings called his cash money formula. It was all about buying smart and selling smarter. He would travel across the country, find classic cars in rough shape, then use hard negotiation and quick cash to close deals fast. Sometimes he carried thousands of dollars with him just to get a seller to say yes on the spot. He once said, "You can always buy a $10,000 car for $5,000 if you've got it in your pocket." That line wasn't just good TV, it was his real-life strategy, and it worked. One of the best examples of the formula in action was a Dodge Challenger build. Rawlings bought it for just over $40,000. The team poured $77,000 into the restoration, adding unique upgrades and features. When the car sold, it went for $150,000. That was a profit of $73,000 on a single flip. It wasn't just luck, it was the result of sharp instincts, smart spending, and a deep understanding of what buyers wanted. What also set Fast and Loud apart was Rawlings' willingness to take risks. He often bought vehicles most people wouldn't. Touch, rust buckets with frame damage, or cars that looked like they'd been forgotten for decades. Even his own team sometimes questioned his decisions, but Rawlings could see potential that others missed. One time he bought a supercar for $400,000. It had serious mechanical issues after a failure with its previous owner. Still, gas monkey. Garage turned it around. After the rebuild, the car sold for a major profit. That kind of high-stakes gamble became part of the show's identity. These rusted-out cars weren't just about money. They brought drama and depth to the show. Each car had a story. Each restoration had problems to solve. Viewers got to see how much time, money, and effort went into these transformations. Some builds didn't go as planned. Some took longer than expected. Not every car made a profit. But that was part of the appeal. It showed the risk behind the reward and gave people a real look at the business side of car restoration. Over time, Fast and Loud became one of Discovery Channel's most successful reality shows. It ran from June 2012 to June 2020. That's 8 full years of builds, flips, and wild road trips. By Season 4, the show had hit its stride. The season brought tight deadlines, unexpected problems, and last-minute repairs that added tension. Viewers never knew if the team would finish a car on time or if deals would fall through. That mix of pressure and payoff kept people watching. But in 2020, Rawlings made a big decision. On the Joe Rogan Experience, he revealed that he had ended his partnership with Discovery. The reason came down to control. He wanted more creative freedom and didn't want to be locked into contracts that limited what he could do next. Leaving the network was a risk, but it also opened new doors. Since then, Rawlings has continued building his brand through YouTube projects and new media ventures, all while maintaining Gas Monkey Garage's success. Richard Rawlings had already built a name for himself in automotive circles. But in September 2013, he decided to take his brand beyond cars and engines. That year, he launched the first Gas Monkey Bar and Grill in Northwest Dallas. It was built on Firewater Bar and Grill's old site and covered 19,000 square feet. It wasn't just food. It combined music venue bar vibes, attitude. Holding up to 1,000 guests, its debut rocked Old 97's live band pre-launch buzz. It turned into a hotspot where car culture, music, and nightlife came together. Later that same year, in October 2014, Rawlings took things up a notch. Right across the street from the original bar and grill, he opened Gas Monkey Live. It was massive, 38,000 square feet with room for 3,000 guests. Before Rawlings got hold of it, the place had been Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill. He turned it into a full-scale concert venue built for big shows and big crowds. On opening night, punk rock legends Social Distortion took the stage. From there, the venue started pulling in huge acts and high-profile events. One of the most talked-about moments came in November 2014. Mötley Crüe performed a free concert there as part of their All Bad Things Must End tour. The event was called Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey, and it wasn't open to everyone. Only Dodge vehicle owners were allowed in. The event wasn't just a concert, it was also a showcase for Dodge's newest models, including the Charger SRT Hellcat and the Challenger SRT Hellcat. The entire night brought together speed, sound, and spectacle. Gas Monkey Live also hosted private events, VIP parties, and corporate functions. It had green rooms and flexible spaces that made it easy to use for more than just music. Even with all the success, the venue hit hard times. By May 2020, Gas Monkey Live closed its doors. Financial pressure from the COVID-19 pandemic made it impossible to keep going. The closure marked the end of a bold chapter for Rawlings' push into live entertainment, but it didn't slow down his ambition. Back in 2014, the same year Gas Monkey Live opened, Rawlings became the national spokesperson for Dodge. His face was suddenly everywhere. Commercials showed him behind the wheel talking up Dodge performance and style. He was a familiar figure from Fast and Loud, and now he was helping Dodge sell cars across the country. One of the most memorable parts of this partnership was the Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey concert at his own venue. It was the perfect crossover. His love for cars, his music space, and a high-profile brand all coming together in one night. The deal helped Dodge connect with car fans while giving Rawlings a national spotlight. His influence in the auto world kept growing. Then, in 2019, he made another move, this time into energy drinks. But instead of building a company from scratch, he licensed the Gas Monkey brand. That way, he kept control of the image without taking on the costs of production. It was a smart decision. Gas Monkey Energy launched with 2 flavors, regular and light. The branding leaned into speed, power, and excitement, the same energy Rawlings brought to everything he did. By January 2025, the brand added a 3rd flavor called Tropical. It had a mix of mango, passion fruit, pineapple, lemon, and honey. It also avoided high-fructose corn syrup and artificial additives. The drink fit well with the lifestyle Rawlings. Promoted, bold, fast, and clean. The energy drinks were sold at convenience stores and online. They also appeared at major motorsports events like the Indianapolis 500 and NHRA races. Richard Rawlings has always lived life in the fast lane. But while his career took off with roaring engines and TV fame, his personal life followed a bumpier road. Long before Fast and Loud and Gas Monkey Garage turned him into a celebrity, Richard got married for the first time in 1993. He was still trying to find his place in the automotive world when his first wife, Karen K. Grames, came into his life during those early, uncertain days. The two got married that year, but the relationship didn't last. By 1994, they were divorced. The marriage had lasted less than a year. There was no fame yet, no fan base, no spotlight, just a young man chasing a dream, and a marriage that ended before it really began. Not much is known about Karen. She stayed out of the public eye, and their brief time together was never part of headlines. But that first divorce was the start of a pattern. It showed how hard it was for Rawlings to balance ambition and personal life. The pressure to build something big came at a cost, and that cost kept showing up, especially in the years that followed. In 1999, he tried again, this time with Suzanne Marie Morel. They got married in Las Vegas right as Rawlings was starting to make progress with Gas Monkey Garage. Things were beginning to work out professionally, but personally, the strain was still there. His business was growing fast. He was traveling often. After 10 years, their relationship hit a breaking point. In 2009, they divorced. For most people, that might have been the end, But Richard and Suzanne had a complicated bond. In 2015, 6 years after their split, they got back together. They were in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and decided to give marriage another shot. It seemed hopeful, a second chance after years of growing and changing, but it didn't last. By March 2019, Rawlings went public again, this time on Twitter, announcing that he and Suzanne were separating. He posted the message on March 11, 2019. It was unusual, but direct. He said that media outlets like TMZ were already reporting on it, so he wanted to be the one to tell his fans. He explained that the decision was mutual. He and Suzanne still cared for each other, but after more than 20 years of being on and off, they had reached their end. That second divorce moved quickly. Suzanne walked away with a financial settlement. Rawlings paid her $300K in 2 parts. She also kept her Mercedes SL450 Roadster. Despite everything, Richard spoke kindly about their time together. He said they had shared something real, even if it didn't last. 2 marriages, 2 divorces, the same person both times. It said a lot about how hard it was for him to make personal life fit with public life. Then came Katerina Deason. Her name made headlines for another reason. She had previously been married to Darwin Deason, a Texas billionaire who sold his company-affiliated computer services to Xerox. For $6 billion, Katerina had spent years in that world. Private jets, super yachts like Apogee, unimaginable wealth lifestyles. But by 2019, her life changed. She and Richard started dating, not long after Suzanne split. Things moved fast. August 17, 2019, Richard proposed, B. Tulum Resort, Mexico. That moment said a lot. Tensions between Richard Rawlings and the team were already out of control. After the bar opened later in 2013, the issues didn't stop. According to the lawsuit, Rawlings kept showing up uninvited, disrupting staff, and trying to take control of decisions. It created a toxic work environment. The situation reached a breaking point in 2015. That's when Rawlings sent a serious email to Daniel Flitty, the bar's managing member, claiming that important financial records had gone missing. Flitty quickly replied and invited Rawlings to check the records in person, but Rawlings refused. He replied, saying he didn't believe the records existed at all. That accusation, one suggesting theft or fraud, would have serious consequences. On July 18, 2015, Flitty wrote back reminding Rawlings that he had always been welcome to audit the books. That email became a key piece of evidence in court. Rawlings eventually apologized for his behavior and blamed it on drinking. But for Flitty and the rest of the team, the damage had already been done. The lawsuit argued that Rawlings' actions had scared off vendors and business partners. It said his public accusations hurt the bar's reputation and made it harder to keep things running. The problems didn't end there. In 2017, when someone showed interest in buying the Gas Monkey Bar brand, Rawlings stepped in again.